Hey, so this Venezuela thing has kind of been popping off recently. And I hear some people on one side saying, it's about drugs. We got to keep drugs out of our country.
I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them.
This is a counter-drug operation. The president's ordered it in defense of our country. It continues, it's ongoing. It can stop tomorrow if they stop sending drug boats.
And then I hear some people on the other side saying, no, you're lying. It's about oil. You just want their oil, you greedy bastards.
Now, Donald Trump is insisting that the main reason he's interested in Venezuela comes back to drugs. But what if it's not just that? What if it's partly about oil?
No, lo que está detrás es lo mismo que está detrás de la guerra de Ucrania.
¿Qué es? Which
Petróleo. Petróleo.
Now, I'm no Venezuela expert, but this whole thing has caused me to do a deep dive. So let me tell you what I found. First of all, Venezuela's current government is controversial. Nobody really likes them except themselves. Our government doesn't really like them because a significant portion of their country's GDP comes from drug money, and many of their government officials are cartel members. The corruption runs deep. Like, it's not just that there are drug cartels in Venezuela, it's that the government directly enables them. Not to mention that they send the drugs to US citizens, and we don't really like that. I should mention that the current administration claims that they're sending us fentanyl precursors, but by my research, fentanyl precursors are mostly made in China, then are sent to Mexico for manufacture, then come to the United States. It has nothing to do with Venezuela. Venezuela traffics cocaine, and even though the US government doesn't love cocaine being trafficked to it, we don't have a huge cocaine problem in the United States like we do with fentanyl or meth. So, while it's true that the drugs are an issue, they're not the whole story. There's another reason we don't like them. They're socialists. They currently control all of the country's oil reserves. And in case you didn't know, Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves of any country in the world. More than Canada, Mexico, Saudi Arabia. Venezuela is number one. So when you put the drugs and the oil together, you start to see why the United States wants regime change in Venezuela. Meanwhile, apparently the people of Venezuela don't really like their current government either. Listen, I know there's a lot of propaganda going back and forth, and it's hard to know what the truth is, but I hear that Venezuela isn't doing too well under their current regime, and I also hear that the last election was almost certainly stolen. And I know we're sensitive to stolen election claims in the United States, but this one definitely seems legit, which would make the government democratically illegitimate anyway. Okay, now with that background, let me tell you what's been going on the past 8 months. Back in March 2025, Trump put out an executive order, executively ordering us to put a 25% tariff on all goods coming from countries that use Venezuelan oil. And the reason for this was simple. Trump wanted regime change, and he felt like squeezing Venezuela economically would be the best first step towards making that happen. Which makes sense, but there was one wild card that I'm not sure he anticipated.
China.
By the summer, a few months of tariffs had passed, and Venezuela was already choking, so China, ever the opportunist, swooped in and said, hey, we'll buy your oil in exchange for control over your oil fields. And Venezuela, ever desperate, said, okay.
While US sanctions did cause Venezuela's overall oil exports to fall by 26%, they failed in their main goal. Instead of collapsing, Venezuela's oil flow simply rerouted almost entirely to one destination: China.
Now, here's a problem I didn't mention before. The US kind of runs on Venezuelan oil. You see, Venezuelan oil is special. It's thick, it's rich in sulfur, and many of our refineries are tuned for it. And even though we can use oil from other countries, when we do, our processing costs go up and our yields for crucial products go down. And that doesn't just drive higher prices at the pump or at the grocery store. The US military is the single largest consumer of oil in the world, and that's during peacetime. During conflict, that amount would go up by a lot. We need to be able to move our military when the moment hits, and oil is how we do that. Like during World War II, US military oil consumption surged to something like dozens of times the pre-war rate. Now, since then, the US military has increased the amount of oil it uses during peacetime, so we wouldn't see quite that level of a surge, but it would still be significant. I should say that it's not that it's literally that the US military is at risk of running out of oil. They would get priority if anything were to happen, but redirecting all of that oil to the military would cause huge disruptions in the oil supply chains, which could tank the American economy. So it is about higher prices, but also national security. Like, remember The Big Short?
Here's a number, every 1% unemployment goes up, 40,000 people die. Did you know that?
No.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Like, messing with the economy is serious business. This is why China loves the idea of controlling Venezuelan oil. If you haven't heard, China is interested in acquiring a little island right next to it called Taiwan. And if it tried, we would almost certainly get involved, because it would be bad for us for a number of reasons. The biggest being that Taiwan is literally the only place in the world where our most advanced computer chips can be manufactured. And this is important because we're currently in a technological arms race with China. Secondly, the Taiwanese government's values align much more with our values than the Chinese government's values do. And even if you don't care about the principle of that, it does indicate that they'll be a little bit nicer to work with. But either way, if China could use this opportunity to compromise our country by blocking our access to Venezuelan oil, it could give them a small advantage in the chess game that they're all playing. And I hear that they're looking to move on Taiwan soon, and if they don't, they'll lose their shot. So they've been locking in these oil deals with Venezuela over the past few months, and if we let the current regime go on much longer, they might lock it all in soon. How soon? I don't know, but I get the sense that it's urgent. I think that this is the real reason that Trump is giving the regime a get-out-now ultimatum. Now, I don't know whether forceful regime change is the answer. I just want to give you the logic behind it. History has shown us that regime change works sometimes and doesn't other times, depending on who you ask. Like, Operation Ajax in 1953 was a CIA operation to overthrow the democratically elected socialist government of Iran because, once again, we were worried about losing access to their oil. And while it kind of worked in the beginning, it turned a significant portion of the Iranian population against the United States. And long story short, is a big part of the reason why the relations between the two countries is still poor to this day. So some might consider that a failure, but there are other instances that could be considered successes. Like, imagine if we hadn't tried to instigate regime change in Nazi Germany. Now, that's extreme, and Venezuela is not nearly that bad. But as another example, in Panama in 1989, we did a thing called Operation Just Cause, where we overthrew a military dictatorship that had clearly lost their election. And with some help from us in the beginning, Panama has functioned as a democracy ever since. And not everyone agrees, but compared to something like Operation Ajax, it's easier to consider that a success. And this Venezuela thing contains aspects from both, like the oil fixation for Ajax and the illegitimate government for Just Cause. So which direction would it end up going? I have no idea. And I don't know if anyone knows, but I'd say there's an uncomfortably high possibility that things get messy. So yeah, that's about it. It's true when Trump says it's about drugs, but I think the drugs are secondary to the oil. But then I hear people saying that just because it's about oil, it must be about greed. And that's not true. It's about national security. And the reason it's urgent is because China is pushing. If we can't move our military without crashing our economy, they can win. See ya.